There is no end in sight to the lockdowns in China's economic hub of Shanghai. On Monday, Shanghai reported a record 13,000 new asymptomatic coronavirus cases. The lockdown was originally set to end today in the city's western districts, but following the surge in cases, the lockdown has now been extended until further notice. Authorities are trying to snuff out the country's most severe virus outbreak since the end of the first pandemic wave in early 2020. Around 25 million people remain locked down in China's largest city and financial center. As much the Shanghai situation is jeopardizing China's zero-COVID strategy as well, it is also turning out to be extremely costly for the world's second largest economy. Along with sporadic lockdowns, the country's worst COVID outbreak in 2 years has brought factory closures as well. Official data showed China's factory activity is shrinking. Last month, China's factory output slumped to its lowest in 2 years. Official PMI figures indicated that activity had contracted at the quickest rate since October 2021. Now, PMIs are a key gauge of activity in the country's factories and can be seen as a more accurate reflection of China's economic situation. Since February 2020, both domestic and export orders fell at the fastest rate. This was when China was battling its first coronavirus outbreak. The Chinese government has set a target for the country's GDP to grow by 5.5% this year. But analysts have said that it will struggle to meet that goal. Shanghai is the world's busiest shipping port. It is a hub for semiconductor, electronics and car manufacturing. Given the COVID outbreak, some companies have temporarily reduced or stopped production. Electric automaker Tesla has cancelled resuming production at its Shanghai factory. Tesla's Shanghai factory produces cars for the China market and is also a crucial export hub. Now, production has been halted since the 28th of March after the government launched a two-stage lockdown. The US automaker had originally hoped to only halt operations for 4 days, but eventually cancelled production plans after the authorities extended tight movement restrictions. The current stoppage marks one of the longest suspensions since the factory started production in late 2019 due to rising infection from the Omicron variant of COVID-19. The Walt Disney Company has also closed its Shanghai Disney Resort. It is the flagship amusement park complex in China, which has been shut down since March 21st until further notice. The lockdown has further delivered a huge blow to revenues of small businesses in the commercial hub as well. COVID-19 restrictions have also taken a heavy toll on the Chinese travel industry. China's 3 biggest airlines have reported wider losses. So on Monday, Shanghai reported a record 13,000 new asymptomatic coronavirus cases, and the lockdown, which was originally set to end today, has been extended until further notice. Now, WION correspondent Patrick Falk is joining us live from Beijing. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, Shanghai has reported 13,000 new asymptomatic cases. The lockdown has been extended. What is the mood like, and what can you tell us about the response to the surge?
Well, there's a huge amount of frustration, as you can imagine. As far as we understand, the collecting of samples has gone quite smoothly. Authorities say they've collected around 26 million samples, and as of Tuesday morning, reports say that 80% of those samples have been tested now. The problem is that we don't know what happens next after this review has taken place. And the difficult thing for residents of Shanghai as well, they don't know how long this lockdown is going to last. And remember, some of them have been under lockdown for a lot longer than just this two-phase lockdown period that we're talking about that was meant to end today. Authorities are also saying that this is the most difficult and critical juncture, but they're saying that they must stick to this dynamic clearance policy, and they must do it unwaveringly and without any hesitation. The difficulty is that, it's becoming more and more difficult for residents of Shanghai to resonate with that because of all the uncertainty. And it's also a very difficult situation for the rest of the country to be observing as well, knowing that the authorities in Shanghai are supposedly, comparatively competent compared to possibly other parts of the country.
Right.
So this spells bad news for China if some sort of outbreak were to happen anywhere else in the country, you might imagine.
Absolutely. Now, also, like I mentioned earlier, Shanghai is a hub for semiconductors, electronics, car manufacturing. What can you tell us about the economic impact of the lockdown?
Yeah, well, this is certainly becoming a growing question, particularly as these restrictions go on. There are various factories and plants, Tesla, GM, to name a few that have shuttered operations in Shanghai for now. There are estimates suggesting that, if this lockdown continues, that it could hurt the economy or have an impact of around 4%, take a 4% hit to China's overall GDP. But of course, these things are difficult to predict with the way things stand right now. But authorities, for now, they're sticking to the plan. They want to continue with this dynamic clearance strategy, and there's no sign of this ending anytime soon.
Right. Absolutely. Patrick, thank you so much for all your inputs on this. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.